I had just started working for KGET-TV as their morning show entertainment reporter. I've worked for 40 years in television and film, writing about television, film, and newspapers, so this whole newspaper television thing is new to me. But because this came up just as I started the station, I jumped at the chance to be part of this panel discussion because I am a great fan of the woman sitting next to me. For those of you, and I'm sure this is stupid of me to say this, for those of you who don't know her, this is Karen Dotrice. Now, those of you who have stuck to your phones and looked at IMDb, you've seen all her credits. But of course, the thing that she's probably will always be known for is working on Mary Poppins. And if there's ever a project to be associated with, I would imagine being connected to Mary Poppins has got to be one of the coolest things on this planet.
Well, next to working with you today, absolutely.
Thank you. You all heard that? I hope you're recording.
Yeah.
Can you just, let's start talking a little bit about you before we get to your credits.
Okay.
You come from an acting family.
Is that against the law? You sound a little judgmental there.
In some place that makes you royalty, and then I think your family looking
That's
at...
not a good thing to be this week. So I'm moving to Canada, you mean?
No, but looking at your, you know, I had the great pleasure of interviewing your father, Roy Dotrice, years ago. Those of you old enough to remember, there was a TV show on CBS called Beauty and the Beast. And her father played...
We got a nod down there.
Okay,
She saw it.
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
If you can't, it's on DVD. Go find it. This is one of the most incredible TV series ever made.
Yeah.
And it was just a wonderful series. Based, you know, it's a modern day telling of the Beauty and the Beast story. Wonderful story. And your father...
But it was actually also written by George R.R. Martin, who you'll know from what's that show called? A bit of a hit he had. That's the one, Game of Thrones. So yeah, it was a great show that Daddy did, and he played father in Beauty and the Beast with Ron Perlman and Linda Hamilton, who was just on Terminator 2. So it was very, very cool. Actually, what was cool about it is I know Bakersfield because of that show. Because my parents, the set of Beauty and the Beast was really, really smoky, just to make it mysterious and interesting. And they had smoke machines going all the time. So my father couldn't breathe for half of the week. And so on the weekends he decided to get a house at Pine Mountain, just off Fraser Park. Where a lot of actors, by the way, if you ever want autographs, just go to Pine Mountain. You don't have to pay $10, just go up there, sit by the deli, and they're all up there trying to get out of the smog and have a break. And we used to come down here to Wool Growers and Noriega's and go to 19th Street and spend too much money in all your antique shops. And so I love Bakersfield. It's actually, I'll tell you something, there are children listening a little bit. My brother-in-law, who's actually passed now, but he was an actor called Edward Woodward. I don't know if you ever saw him do the Equalizer TV show, etc. And so we'd bring him down here, and he came up with a little ditty, which he loved Bakersfield, which was the shopping. And he came up with this ditty, which was... I will not go, I will not yield until I've had my Bakersfield. Yes, he did. He's very dexterous in that regard. Yeah. Okay.
Was there filming the first day, or did you get a little bit of time to sort of get comfortable around, you know, the other actors?
God, comfortable? It wasn't comfortable at all. It was really terrible. You know, flying over from, I grew up in the countryside. That's why I love Bakersfield, because I love being out in the countryside. So I grew up in the Cotswolds in England, which, you know, horses and puppies and all the rest of it. And so something I'm plucked out of obscurity in a place called Warwickshire, and taken over to Hollywood and to Burbank. And that was a little bit intimidating, because, you know, I wouldn't have been... Back in those days, you had propeller aeroplanes, and it took like a day. It was like going to Australia. It took forever. You had to land in Ireland, and then Newfoundland, and then San Francisco, and then eventually, you know, it's like, it took forever to get to LA. And then I get to Burbank Studios, and these Americans, and I didn't really know American voices. I'm totally used to them now. I've bred 3 of you. Okay, with that mom stuff. And then, you know, everybody's going, hi, Karen, and I'm like, wow, aliens. So it got worse, because then they said, okay, you're going to go to, I think, the prop department. I didn't know what they were talking about. So go to this thing, and they said, all right, bend over. And I look at my chaperone, and she looks at me and nods, and I'm thinking, I don't know about this. There's a little Harvey Weinstein moment coming up. You kind of do what you're told when you're a kid. So anyway, the first thing they did, to answer your question, was take it's hard to say, a plaster cast of your arse. Say that 3 times quickly. Because what they did, they took a plaster cast of your bum, and then that was the thing they put inside your costumes for if you were going up the banister, or if you were flying on the ceiling, you sat in a cast of your butt. But it was a strange introduction. Yeah. I'd rather have had a milkshake.
Every actor jumps into them. The first thing they do is tell you to bend over, don't they?
Well, maybe in your line of work, but in mine.
Okay, so you got that out of the way, and you finally get to do the work process. And you got to work with what I consider 2 of the greatest human beings on this planet, and Dick Van Dyke and Julie Andrews.
Yes, you got it. It's a little bit.
What was your introduction to them?
Well, the first time I saw Dick, of course, he fell over, because that's all he would ever do. He was so clumsy. that thing in the Dick Van Dyke show is true. He falls over. I know him. He's a neighbour of mine in Malibu, and he falls over all the time. And the guy is like 92, 93 or something. How he's lived, I have no clue. He's covered in bruises. He's always falling over everything. But anyway, I adore him. He's a complete delight. So he was very fun, and you know, if you were a little kid, hanging out with him was just like having a big brother, because he was such a silly boy. And Julie, first time I met her, goodness children, I can't tell all these stories, but anyway, she's got a bit of a mouth on her. And you know, she wasn't playing Mary Poppins and had the pretty outfit on that I've seen some of the kids have here today. You know, there's a couple of, you know, interesting sort of sailor type of language coming out of her. That's the first thing I remember her saying to me. Yeah, I think it was in reference to the fact that Dick had just fallen over, and she's something like, oh, not again, kind of thing. But yeah, but they were divine. I mean, Julie was particularly sweet to me. She had 1 day off for the first time in weeks, because obviously with singing and dancing and filming, it was going on forever for her. And she just had a baby a little bit before. She'd had her daughter Emma, so I don't know how she got squeezed into that little outfit. But we had to do the Perfect Nanny song, you know, where I'm reading this thing about asking for, it's a classified ad basically, saying somebody come and work for reading monsters to children. But they sent the music to me in England, and my father, being from the Royal Shakespeare Company, said, oh darling, you know, I've got the perfect person to teach you how to sing this song. Let's go off to Dame Judy Dilks or something in the village, and she'll teach you how to sing this song. So anyway, back in those days, you would go in front of a live orchestra. We didn't have all the video and all the stuff we have today. So here I am, this tiny little thing from the countryside, and I'm going in front of a live orchestra, but as many as you got, but you know, all this stuff going on. And they said, okay, action, let's do a take. And I sang The Perfect Nanny like I'd been trained to, which was like this. If you want to destroy his position. And Julie, poor love, who's just passing by, she looks through the booth thing and she was like, and that went on for about 5 minutes. Her face frozen, and she said some of those choice words that she was known for a little bit. I said, oh, good God, yes, all right, let's take 5. I think probably about 30 minutes would be more appropriate. So she took me off to the side, and this poor girl hadn't had a day off in ages, and she took me aside and said, Karen, what do you think this song's about? I don't know. And she said, well, you know, you're a little girl, aren't you? You're a little girl, and this is about, you know, you need a new nanny and somebody that you like, and why don't you just try singing that again like you're 7? So I sang it like a normal kid, and thank God they printed that, and that was okay. But honestly, otherwise, if Julie hadn't been walking through, that would have been one of the most nauseating moments in the film.
Okay, to me, what do you think the reaction would have been to the new Mary Poppins?
I think he'd be really proud of Rob Marshall, the director, and John DeLuca, his partner and co-producer. for having the BALLS to do it, because, you know, the same way as he did the first time around, that was a very big thing to try to attempt to do, not even a remake, not a follow-up, I mean, it's an individual film. I would hate to impose what I would think he would think. Yeah. That would be extremely vain, and I know that he'd be happy with a return to the box office for a studio. That went down well. I mean, he was a businessman at the end of the day. So it's a beautiful film, and Rob Marshall, I couldn't have been more impressed with him as the director. When I met him, he knew everything about the film, everything about all of us who were in it. He knew everything about every other part of my life and career. I mean, the man was a dedicated devotee of the original. So he did his level best, and I think Walt would have appreciated that. And Emily Blunt, she's extraordinary. She made a great Mary Poppins.
Yeah, yeah. But again, I've always argued, I hate when they remake incredible movies. Yeah. You know, if you're going to remake something, do something that failed. Because
we could have done the Nobel.
Yeah. You know, you set yourself up. And again, nothing against the new version, but again, you're not going to surpass that magic of that first film. It's just, it is one of the top 10 films of all time, as far as influencing filmmaking and influencing people. So you're asking for trouble. But you did come back, and you had a role in the new Mary Poppins.
I did. I had a tiny little thing, which in parlance of show business is called an Easter egg. And when they called me, and when Sean, whatever his name, Murphy, something of Disney, called me to ask me if I'd be in it, he said, "We'd like you to be an Easter egg." And I thought, really? Yeah. Easter Bunny in this one? I don't think we're I'm not really in with the jingo, but the lingo. So anyway, it turns out an Easter egg is the director or producer's little kind of secret within the movie, you know. And so I played Elegant Lady. And, I'm not going to have any fancy adult memories like I would if I knew him today, but he gave us a house while we were filming that had an indoor heated swimming pool, which was freaking cool. Yeah, that's Wait, I mean, I came from England. It snows like 500 days of the year. And so there's an indoor heated swimming pool. It was so cool, with piped-in music and stuff. But the Beach Boys playing, that really dates me. But I mean, it was a new band at the time, so it was super cool. And then, you know, he has a ranch in Santa Barbara and a place in Palm Springs. And on the weekends, he would, not every weekend, but once in a while, he would loan one of his little planes to take me and my mom and sisters to the ranch or to Santa Barbara or to Palm Springs for the weekend. But the coolest, again, that should be impressive, but it wasn't impressive because I'm a kid. And so what I remember about it was, do I have the coronavirus? What's going on?
You're just allergic to me. I think
no, that's what it is. It's a nice aftershave. Well, what he did with Uncle Walt didn't like flying, and I never liked flying either. I think it's unnatural, but so the inside of the plane that would take us to Palm Springs, and I mean today that's a quick flight, but these were prop planes. Because he knew I didn't like flying, he had the inside of this plane, which, by the way, the plane's call signal to the ground control was Mickey Mouse 1. Of course, it had to be. I always wondered, why wasn't it Dumbo 1? But, you know, that makes sense. But anyway, I guess it's like Air Force 1, you know, it was his call signal. But he had the inside of the plane done out like a candy store for me. So instead of sitting there white-knuckling it, you know, going through the thermals up and down in Palm Springs, I would sell my mum. That wasn't very nice, was it? I would sell my mum things. She would pay for it. There's a Hershey's bar, $2, you know, and it's probably worth about 10 cents.
Well, that's your money you were spending too, so.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you were paying yourself. Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, he was just really thoughtful and kind in that way. That, and you know, seeing the movie Saving Mr. Banks, I don't know if you've seen it, but that had a big impression on me, because seeing that film, I realized that Uncle Walt was put out to work by his parents when he was like 7 or 8 to deliver their family newspaper, you know, where he grew up, where it was snow and rain and everything, and rain or shine, he had to go to live in the family newspaper every morning. And it suddenly occurred to me, watching that film, I was sitting at the premiere, and again, I'm not this flash, but you know, asking questions that happen to be get flash answers. But I'm sitting next to Colin Farrell. It's going to take a couple of minutes. Okay? In fact, that's a little sidebar. I realised that my husband's on one side, Colin Farrell's on the other side, and my husband turned around and said, "Stop it." What? He said, "You're stroking Colin's head." Stop myself. I couldn't stop saying if you were sitting next to God, I'm sorry, husband's boyfriend, not a prank. If Colin Farrell is sitting next to you, you touch him without even asking him. It's just terrible. But seeing this film, you know, realising that Uncle Walt, when he was 7 or 8, same age as I was when doing Mary Poppins, that he'd had a you know, ropey childhood. And it just occurred to me, watching the film at the premiere, that, oh my God, that's why he treated me so nicely. Because in his mind, he's thinking, if you have to work when you're 7 or 8, and I didn't have to work, you know, it was fun to do, obviously, any of us would want to do it. But his ethos was, let's make it special, let's make it fun. And he didn't spoil me. I mean, it sounds a bit spoiling, but I remember one time, if I've got to get me to shut up when I need to, because I'll go on for years. One time I was going to have lunch with Uncle Walt, so I went into his office, and he had a terrible cough, soon to find out a couple of years later. He had lung cancer, but I didn't know that then. And when he was coughing, so I went in, like I am now, going into his office, and he was coughing so much. And I sat next to him on the other side of his desk, and I said, "Uncle Walt, I've got a great idea." And, you know, he was always encouraging, you know, what ideas do you have? He was just so invested in children. That's why he made Disneyland, because he wants to bring out the child in all of us. And he said, I said, "I've got a great idea. Look, let me help you." And I stood up and I started to push his desk, you know, which was huge, towards his office door. I said, "You know what, if we move your desk closer to the office door, then you wouldn't have so far to walk and you wouldn't cough." And he said to me, which was salient advice for the rest of your life, he said, "Karen, let me tell you something. I have my desk the further side of the office for a reason." And I said, "Well, what?" And he said, "Well, because, you know, my office door will knock, and there's going to be," this dates me again, he said, "there'll be some cigar-chewing executive coming in, ready to ask me something that he wants." And he said, "But by the time he's walked over to my desk, he's lost the nerve." Uncle Walt to a 7-year-old, pretty cool. So what did he teach me? He taught me a lot about life, he taught me a lot about love, and he gave us all happiness, right?